Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Comics. I'm Taylor Trask.
I'm Todd A.
And I am back after a hiatus.
Yeah. Congratulations on your wedding and your honeymoon and all of this.
Yeah, thank you. So for those of you who don't know, I've been gone the last 2 weeks. I got married, and then in sort of classic movie style, we whisked off to our honeymoon almost not exactly a day later, but basically the day after the wedding. We went off to Italy and had a ball of a time. We spent the last 30 minutes off air. Todd and I were talking about it, and I'll probably have stories to tell as we go. If you're interested at all in any of the stuff that I saw, just visit my Instagram account. I'm by Taylor Trask on Instagram. I've been posting up a bunch of stuff there.
Great plug right off the bat.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty proud of
your pictures have been ridiculous. And I do think we should mention off air, I asked what camera you had brought because you are a photographer and videographer.
Yeah.
And your answer surprised me somewhat.
Yeah, I brought, and this was intentional. I didn't want to lug around my Sony or a Canon or anything like that. So I, a couple months ago, picked up the Google Pixel 2 XL because I needed a new phone anyway. But I got that one because I'm like, I'm going to be on this honeymoon. I'm going to be in Italy. I want a camera that can hold up. And doggone it, this camera really did the job great. And then on top of that, I paired it with, if you're on Android, or I think on iOS too, this is just as good. But if you're on Android, grab Photoshop Express because it is by far the best editing tool for digital pictures. Even better than Adobe's Lightroom app, I've noticed, because the workflow is way better. But the Google Pixel 2 camera and then the Adobe Photoshop Express app combined give you some really good results. So take that little tip if you're interested and run with it. We on this episode, we're going to be catching up on a few things. But first, as always, we talk about the coffee we're drinking or sometimes not drinking, depending on when we're recording this. We're back to our traditional recording time of Sunday morning. So whenever you're hearing this, that's when we're talking. And Todd, what's in the pot this morning for you?
And I specifically, before we started recording, said, hey, make sure to mention the coffee we're drinking. I'm not drinking any coffee. I'm on the gunpowder green tea again. I'm trying to make this my morning thing. And then because I am inevitably going for coffee later in the day.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of boring, but I just haven't had any coffee in the house for a while to make my own coffee. So yeah, what about you?
Fix that. Well, having just been in Italy and having been exposed to daily some amazing coffee, I decided to dust off the old espresso machine. I have one of those single pull machines that I've had for several years now, and it gets periodic use. And then I kind of go dormant because I go back to the AeroPress or I go to the stovetop espresso. So I busted that back out, and I've been drinking, and this is kind of a shock, just straight espresso.
Wow.
once in the morning. I've been trying to. It's weird. Being in Italy, I haven't needed as much coffee as normal. And normally I'm drinking 2-3 cups a day. I got over there, and I have a really good, strong cup in the morning. I'm good to go until about 5 or 6 at night, and I might dust off another half a cup or a shot or something, but it's kind of all I need. So this morning I kind of waited knowing that we were going to record, and I fired up a really just good single shot, no cream, just the shot, and it's just lovely. And I honestly forget what the beans are. I had some beans probably left over from a previous batch that I've talked about on a previous episode.
So not beans. You did not bring back any beans from Italy?
No, I didn't. And the only reason I didn't is because most of the coffee shops we went into were cafes. So it was like a restaurant that happened to just have a really good, it's not like they don't have Starbucks over there, right? They don't have the shop that's just a coffee shop, which is really strange because there are so many good ones over here in the States that we've talked about. It's, you kind of wonder well, what inspired that? And apparently not Italy. At least the places we went, and we were all over. So when you walk in, it's not like there's the coffee shop that's selling their small batch beans or anything. So I just never was in a place where I found a bag of beans that was, looked like it was good or that I had sampled. So I never got to do it. So this was just a bag, some unground beans that I still had in the pantry. And I don't know what they are. They're a light roast, and they're making a really good espresso right now. So yeah, I love that.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to keep that trend up for a little while. On top of that, though, we have a big week coming up.
We sure do.
As I mentioned, just got back from traveling. You, sir, are going to be traveling, but it's sort of in your backyard, so not quite traveling as far as I did, but San Diego Comic-Con is on the horizon.
It is upon us once again.
Yeah. Geek Christmas, as I sometimes think of it. It's like there are plenty of amazing cons across the country all year long. So I don't want to, Denver's happened last month. New York's when is New York's? I always forget when.
It's like early fall, I think.
Yeah, so there's
or something.
Many cons, but SDCC is kind of like the granddaddy of them all. It's the one that you kind of have to if you're getting your geek Girl Scout badge, or you're building out your belt, you have to attend that at least once. And Todd has attended many times. I sadly have not attended once, so I've had to live vicariously through you and my other friends who've gone. I really hope next year I can rectify that. The only reason I didn't even attempt it this year was because I was getting married and spending money on other things. So like, not really in the cards for me this year. But you're going in. Oh, go ahead.
I do think it's justified to say, honey, we gotta cut the honeymoon short.
Yeah,
San Diego Comic-Con is next week.
Oh man, I wish. Oh, if we had no jobs and unlimited money, that would have been in the cards. But our little kiddies were here back at home, and they missed us terribly. So we had to come back. But Todd has been. You are a veteran at this point.
Yeah,
you picked up some tips. 11th year. Oh my God. In fact, now that you say that, I remember last year when we talked about SDCC, you had said 10th year, and it was like, wow, it's a decade in. But you picked up a lot of tips and tricks, and I was telling you before we started recording, there's this series of travel books called Rick Steves' Guide to, and it's like, usually it's Europe, but he's kind of got a bunch of different ones. And Rick Steves, if you don't know, they're really well done books. You usually see them in travel stores and bookstores and things. He kind of looks a bit like a pastor. So when you see the back, you almost want to call him Pastor Rick Steves. He's not, but you look at him, you're like, well, clearly you've been involved with ministry at some point. But like I was looking at our notes for today, and I was like, oh, Todd gets to do his Rick Steves Comic-Con guide to, essentially. And we've got a lot of good stuff. And I think to kick us off, you haven't gone yet. You're assembling, and I hopefully the people listening, are in the process of packing or in the process of getting ready to go. I think for me, and I'm legitimately asking this because having not been to a con before, knowing that San Diego is big and sprawling, you kind of have to keep a lot of stuff with you. You got to pack light, I'm guessing, in a lot of cases. Walk our listeners through, how do you pack for San Diego Comic-Con?
That's great. A great question. Like for everyone to ask, how do you pack for this? I several years ago tried to do like a humorous video on like what to pack, but humorous but being serious about it. And at the time, I was remembering this morning, how when I made that video the year previous, I had carried like a courier bag, like a shoulder bag kind of thing, which is just some, like that's what I carry day to day, drop a laptop in it or drop a book or notebook or whatever. So it made sense that's just my Comic-Con bag. But that particular year, I had decided I'm going to switch to a backpack. And I had bought this lightweight backpack, and I hated it that year. Mm-hmm. And so I went back to my shoulder bag, didn't look back. But until last year, when I bought a Star Wars like souvenir backpack there, and it was a great backpack. And I had it for like maybe just 2 days of the con, because I bought it at the con. It was some, release right then. Mm-hmm. Looked sort of like a stormtrooper, had the Empire insignia on it, and was sort of battered up in black and white. And it was great for carrying everything. And then this year I flip-flopped back and forth. In the intervening year, I have gotten rid of that backpack because I just didn't use it outside of con. And I have another lightweight backpack, but I'm also taking the shoulder bag. I'm going to do the backpack the first day and see how that treats me, because I have a pretty lightweight sort of, I don't know, it's a Timbuktu bag, but it's a very lightweight one, not like a camping one. So yeah. And then in that, I will have to jam in a bunch of daily necessities and contingencies. And I was also, if I don't know how it works for everyone, if this is just 4-day badge holders or if everyone gets this, but the past 2 years, Comic-Con has been doing this amazing booklet that comes with their badge. And they've actually always sent you some sort of stuff. It's just they've got their package going the last 2 years where it's a little box you get and you open it up and your badge is in it. And there's like a souvenir pin, and then there's this booklet, and in the center of the booklet is a map of the convention center, and then there's some map of some additional stuff. And they have a pretty great like must-have list. And so they in that list, I mean, I think that's your basics, that's your jumping off point. I just wanted to expand on that a little bit. It looks like we've got pretty good weather next week in San Diego, like mid 70s.
Oh, wow.
But
it's usually pretty, I mean, is this traditionally like a really hot sort of time of year in San Diego? Like,
no, it's right on the water, like the convention center. So I mean, the difference for people, I would assume, traveling from like either the Pacific Northwest or like the eastern side of our country where there are seasons, is that for me, speaking as like a person who grew up in the South, the sun in California is just very different. And I'm sure it's the same all over the Southwest. Like, it's desert sun. It's not Nashville sun. It is a hot sun that there is no escape from, and there is no moisture in the air, so there's no humidity. You're just getting like a pure hot sunshine all day. So if there's no breeze or something, that can get pretty hot. But generally like mid 70s down there is perfect. Like you feel pretty good outside. Obviously you're in a crowd of like 100 to 200,000 people. So there's body heat to be aware of. And also air not moving. I mean, I would guess like without anyone in the convention center, they must be keeping it at like 40 degrees.
Jesus.
I mean, because it's like if you can go in and it feels slightly comfortable and there's, it's at least 70,000 people in there at any given time or something, it's got to be an iceberg without them.
Well, let's give listeners like the checklist. Like, what are these essential things that you'd want to pack in that bag that you'd want with you, every day at the con?
Yeah. And I would say, the booklet that comes with it, check out that stuff. Like there's just basics like your ID and, your badge is probably going to come without a lanyard. But when you walk in for the first time, they're going to hand you one of those giant souvenir bags that you see in all the photos from con where it's like people wear it as a backpack and it's 3 feet wide by 4 feet tall. And they're going to hand you a lanyard and they're going to hand you these books. So you can carry that stuff. That's great. But it also weighs you down. So you're gonna, first day, you figure it out. But like I generally don't even pick that stuff up. So yeah, I the essentials to me are keeping clean, of course, protecting myself from the sun, and staying hydrated. So I have sunscreen with me. I'm going to carry like a spray on sunscreen. And also like I have this thing that looks like a deodorant stick, but it's sunscreen. So I can just easily like, stick it on my forehead and on the tops of my ears. So when I'm standing outside waiting for a hot dog or whatever, I'm not getting burned. But I will also carry, a hand sanitizer and probably like a backup hand sanitizer. Maybe some,
lots of press in the flesh, I guess.
Like, wipe off door handles or anything that I might be a little sketchy about. But my secret...
Are you saying nerds are dirty, Todd? Are you saying that
I'm just saying conventions are dirty?
Okay.
And it's funny because Lainey off the air last week when we did our episode told me some behind the scenes on like how filthy the bathrooms are at New York Comic Con.
Oh, geez.
Compared to San Diego. And it was like, oh man, I didn't know we needed to be that thankful for them. I mean, they're, it's like, I always recognize they're doing a good job, like keeping those things clean throughout the day. But apparently like it's an incredible job that we are just not even close to appreciating.
I
in
kind of
light.
feel like they need to have one of those like mini documentaries. You know how on the Disney Channel from time to time they air like when the park closes, this team comes
Oh
out and like
yeah. Oh my
they
God.
walk all the rides. There's literally like 8 hours between when the park closes and opens that this like army of people go and clean and inspect and reset, and it's like. And it's almost like the park is just as active, but with all the people in the background. I wonder if the con has kind of a version of that where it's like,
I mean, they that would be a great thing to see happen, like to actually make that documentary, because there are great figures that I do not have in front of me of like how much money this brings into San Diego every year and how many people it employs through that week. And I guess beyond with the preparation and the cleanup. So yeah, that's a story in itself, some enterprising writer or documentarian who can get a paycheck from that. Get on that.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and not necessarily because the con is dirty itself. It's just you're going to be around thousands and thousands of people. I just bring hand sanitizer. I'm one of those people. So I would definitely suggest that to anyone. Target has them. They're like 50 cents each or whatever. Grab like a bunch of them. This is also coming from the guy who got swine flu at
that's
San Diego
right.
Comic-Con in 2009. So
that's right. I remember talking about this.
I came back to Orange County and my doctor was like, well, you're a patient zero in Orange County. We have
no. It can happen. It's almost like a geek refugee colony, where it's like,
yep. Yeah. So, but I'll tell you my secret weapon, which I don't actually use as much as I want to use, are these things you can find at any like drugstore or Target or whatever that are just they're often in the makeup removal section, but they're just like cleaning cloths for your face. And the ones I like are, I can't even remember the brand name, but it has something about cucumber in the name because they're cucumber face wipes. Actually, the ones I really like are the Target, whatever it's called, the one, they have that brand that's like 1-on-1 or 1-to-1 or something.
Yeah.
But they don't make a travel pack. But these cucumber travel pack wipes are awesome for just like refreshing yourself. Just wipe your face off in the middle of the day because you've been sweating all day. It's fantastic. And for me also, I wear sunscreen all the time, of course, because I live in Southern California. And it drives me crazy when you start to like perspire, or it's just late in the day and it starts running down your face and like into your eyes and stinging and stuff. So having these little face wipes where you're just standing in a line, like sweating, and can just wipe off that sunscreen and like refresh yourself. That's my secret weapon, are the face wipes. Yeah. So I definitely bring sunglasses. You're going to spend more time outside than you think about. So if you can grab some like cheap sunglasses that just, it's okay if you break them or whatever, that'd be great. Throw those in the bag. If you're a hat kind of person, I would say a hat's a good idea. I like again, it's just bright sunlight. So I happen to have received both sunglasses and a hat as swag last year. So I'm covered.
Nice. And you also have that credibility of like, I was here last year. You can see it displayed on me.
You're seeing this cheap hat that has somehow made it through the year.
Is that kind of like wearing the T-shirt of the band you're seeing to the concert of that band? Does it feel like that at all, or does it matter?
I don't know. I've probably been guilty of wearing some T-shirts of bands I don't necessarily subscribe to that terrible judgment of like,
okay,
if you wear the T-shirt to the band, but no, because there's definitely like there's almost a thing of people at cons where they're carrying last year's bag or something, and you're going like, oh, I got it, or repurposing the bag to something new this year. Yeah, so. Okay, so if you trash this huge bag or just don't accept it at the beginning, which is the better deal, don't take it and then throw it away. Just don't take it.
It's not like a swag bag. It doesn't have anything in it. It's just
right. It's just this enormous bag that's advertising some show or something on it, and everyone's turned into a walking billboard for the week. And that's great. Like if it works for you, it is just enormous. And so you're either going to have to fold it up and put this thing in your bag, which is going to take up quite a bit of space, or you're going to have to wear it around and everything you have is like way down in the bottom of this huge bag. And they're not really that, they're not they're not like real reliable. It's kind of like an IKEA bag that's only one,
Oh,
one layer of plastic or whatever.
got
It's
it.
just
Okay.
not. I had the straps break on them before when I've loaded them down with stuff, and it's not convenient to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you don't accept that, bear in mind a lot of the dealers don't have bags for you. So that is the benefit of them giving you this giant bag, is everything you buy, you're going to be able to put in this thing for sure. But if you don't like it like me, then you got to be pretty conscious of like, if I buy an art print, how am I going to safely carry this? So especially if you're going for art, a lot of people buy those like poster tubes. And especially if you can get one that might fit in your backpack, that's a great idea. Roll up those art prints, put them in your own poster tube, and that you can somehow pack. But yeah, so you may need bags. It's also a good argument for like, the bag that you're carrying with you, you can't have it so packed full of your food and sunscreen that you can't fit anything else in it.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't been to a con, it's like there's the events, which we'll talk about. There's the people you can meet. There's Artist Alley, but a lot of it, if not half of it, is just a gigantic pop-up store of the coolest stuff you'll ever buy all year long. So you want to have room to carry all that, or maybe not. Maybe you're one of those people who's like, no. If I have too much room, I'll buy too much stuff. So I just gotta be careful. But just know that going in, you're gonna spend money on some cool stuff. You want to be able to put it away so you can walk around and not have it, just lugging you around everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. I had the funniest introductory experience my first year at con. I met up with a friend who had traveled out from Nashville. So I was living here then, and he had traveled out, but he had been before. So he had this whole system, and this is like pre-app days and stuff like that. So he has this, the preview book that the schedule that he's printed out online and highlighted every panel that he's going to. Jeez. And then he had one of those camping backpacks with like all the sections. And he was like, well, this section, is all the hardbound trade paperbacks, or not trade paperbacks, but like the hardbound, like graphic novels that he picked up. And this section is like the toys. And this section is like the stuff that can get crushed. It's okay. And so he had brought this bag big enough basically to like organize every section of it. I try to go as light as possible. So I'm hoping the backpack with the like outside drink pockets, like water bottle pockets, will help me out a little bit this year.
Mm-hmm. Let me stop real quick with the bag. I just came back from Italy. At every turn, they're warning you about pickpockets. Make sure you watch out. Is that a concern at SDCC? Do you get a lot of that? Do you feel like
I've never been warned of that concern. But as you might imagine from a guy who carries face wipes and hand sanitizer everywhere, I'm a little obsessive compulsive in some things. Mm-hmm. So I'm probably sort of naturally guarding cash and wallet and things like that. It is like wall to wall bodies on Friday and Saturday. So just if you have any reason to be concerned, like be concerned, it's not, and honestly, not to jump into a awful topic, but also like I have in the past witnessed people just being obscene in those tight spaces, So if you are like, just be prepared, it is not like, it's not always a comfortable environment. It's like, it is a good crowd, I would say. Largely, it's not like one that you need to be worried about. It's not like being on a subway full of strangers. You can rest assured that everybody is actually there for the convention itself, not to just be perverts, but there are going to be those people in that crowd, and watch out. But yeah, I would say wallet and anything else you need to keep close to you. Make sure it's like on your person, not in some deep bag that when you're crammed into a crowd, you're not going to notice someone dipping their hand into. Mm-hmm. And along those lines, it is good actually to have some cash on you, because although almost every artist now uses something like Square to process credit card payments, it always helps those artists out if you're buying directly from them with cash. So, I would say just on that, like sort of, being a good citizen kind of scale is like the more corporate the entity from which you are buying, that's your credit card level,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go down to like debit cards and then cash to like the independent artist. But if you're buying something from DC, yeah, for all, use your credit card and they'll pay that 3% processing fee or whatever. But it always helps out artists to hand them cash. And then I brought up the camera thing with you because I have gone back and forth on carrying my camera. I don't think I carried it at all last year. I think I relied totally on my phone. And I think the year before I only carried it like one day. I am going to bring mine specifically because I'm going to put the portrait lens on it, like my 40mm lens. Because I've just had a really good time like shooting portraits of cosplayers before. And the wide angle my phone can capture, if I'm outside and I want to take a picture of the crowd, the phone's going to get that no problem. But that's the only reason I can really see for bringing, my Canon. But bear that in mind, that's another weight that you're carrying around. There's an absolute grab the Comic-Con app right now. I don't know if the schedule, I saw the schedule for the first time on the app this morning. So it's there right now. It will get updated over the next week. But certainly every day, like as you save events to your schedule and you open up the next day, just be aware, like it's going to update stuff. And so, just check for updates and see what's changed on your schedule. But it does a great job of like, you can star events and it saves them to my events. So then you can go back and say, what are the Thursday events I starred, and you can kind of see your quick schedule there. And then a thing that I have not done in the past, I've always heard, and even the Comic-Con book says, bring a sketchbook. It's great for getting autographs or sketches from artists. But something I didn't really think of until my friend Eric was in Artist Alley and people were giving him sketchbooks is you can create a great collection of your own, like a great coffee table book of your own.
Nice.
If you are taking a sketchbook in, handing it to an artist and commissioning them, if your favorite character is Batman or whatever, and you get each artist to draw that same character, you're going to have this amazing coffee table book of like your favorite artist drawing your favorite character over and over.
Nice.
So,
I love that. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's like pretty much artists that do take those kind of commissions will draw any character you request, but it's always good to like specialize. If they've got a special character or something, I wouldn't say go like definitely don't go out of your way to like stump them or something.
Yeah.
So I know.
But like I'm immediately thinking if this was me, I would pick a character from like Masters of the Universe or something, or like Doctor Who, where it's like I would be more interested to see how they and I would give them like do whatever you want, like knowing what that, even if you kind of are half familiar with that character, draw it anyway because I'm curious what it looks like through your eyes.
You kind of want to get their take on it.
Yeah.
I would just say, be mindful if you get some pushback from the artist, respect the artist and change your tactic,
Respect the artist. That should be like a sign everywhere,
For sure. Having like sat at Eric's table only for like an hour at a time the past couple of years, it is the experience behind that table is so crazy. And it's definitely weirder for me because I'm not actually working on a sketch. At least the artist kind of gets to look down and ignore how people are ignoring him. But it's just a different experience where there's like, like a guy tried to steal money from me, like in front of my face.
Wow.
Like bought a print from me, and pretended he gave me like a 20 or something. I can't remember the whole situation. It was like, oh man, this is weak. You're trying to steal from like an artist,
Mm-hmm.
not like some massive company that's not going to notice. Like I'm going to notice $10. Anyway. Yeah. So that's kind of my quick overview of like what to pack. Again, lightweight, prepare for heat. If not in the weather, then in the body heat, and prepare for crowds. Yeah. So that is probably a good way to jump off on my number one rule that goes through everything, which is just, it's like a thing you're gonna have to have some like forgiveness for yourself, even if you have this in mind. You got to plan on lines for everything. So this is not I'll grab a cup of coffee real fast and meet you guys in the room kind of thing.
Hmm.
Like if you want a bathroom, if you want coffee, if you want food, if you, whatever you want a autograph from somebody and they're at the booth at that moment, plan on a line. And it's so hard, even like going in year after year and knowing, oh, we're going to have all these lines. I still forget I'm going to have to be in lines all the time.
Hmm.
But I think the corollary to that is to go in with only a few targets each day
Mm.
so that nothing is too close together. Like basically, if anything is back to back and it's not in the same room, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
I last year I remember, like on Thursday I said, look, the only thing I want to do is get John Hodgman's autograph on this day. And I had that great little encounter with John Hodgman and got his autograph. It's always fun when you like meet the person that, you really admire. And I have like a little special moment to take away from John Hodgman. And I walk over, and I see, I talked about it last year and it just slipped his name. Oh no.
While you think about that,
Yeah.
let me just interject and say, if you've not been to San Diego Comic-Con and you're interested in the Hall H experience,
Sure.
probably make that the only thing you're going to do that day.
Yeah.
It seems like every time I talk to anybody who has seen or has been a part of Hall H, you got to line up. It's almost like a concert in the 80s when you're buying tickets. Like you almost have to line up the night before to even get considered to be in the hall. And then once you get through that line, then it's like you got to sit in the hall for another couple hours or an hour or two. It's the Hall H experience is almost its own version of Comic-Con. And there's a lot of cool things that happen in Hall H, but honestly, they show a lot of that on YouTube, either officially or unofficially after the fact, or even during anyway. So just be mindful of the things that you're investing your time in. It might make more sense to go, what would take a whole day to do one Hall H panel. You might be able to find 6 to 7 really cool indie things that are either undiscovered or much, much smaller in scope that you'd get a much more well-rounded experience in doing.
For sure. There's that's funny because we have an episode from 2 years ago. It's number 19 of our show. If you go back to it, 19, 20, and 21 were all about Comic-Con in 2016. And that one we talked to one of my friends who did the Hall H thing for the Alien panel.
Mm-hmm.
Michaela. And it was definitely that thing of like, she had never done the whole Hall H experience and planned her whole day, like Saturday or whatever it was, Friday or Saturday. She just said, I will be in Hall H. So she spent the night down there so that she was, first in line the next morning. And she goes through the whole thing of like how they're going to hand out these tickets that tell you what place you are in line, what group you are in line. They do that in the evening after the last panel has ended from that day. And then you're allowed to go home, I think, but she ended up going home and like showering and getting something to eat, but then came back and got in line because people just don't trust each other not to jump the line overnight, and people literally just camp out. And then she spent the whole day in Hall H, but she saw so much cool stuff and she'd never done it. And it was, it varies so wildly too, because I think a couple of years ago, like that year she did it, I would have told you, don't even try to go to Hall H unless you can dedicate the whole day to it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think it seems to me like last year, now I didn't go in Hall H last year, but I know there were times where I saw the line was just empty and you could basically walk in because once the final big panel of the day is gone, so many people leave that then there's no more line required to go to the next panel. They just let people in until it's filled up. So I do think you're always going to have like a special experience with Hall H. I mean, I get asked every year from people if it's too commercial now and it's just not the same. And no, granted, I didn't go in sort of the 80s or 90s. But the thing is, it is so huge. You can find, if you are at all in a geek community space, you'll find members of that community there.
Yeah.
So
you can almost custom tailor your own version of SDCC.
Exactly.
Big or small.
That is exactly what you're doing. This is not Disneyland where everybody's going on Space Mountain. If you miss Hall H, no problem. It doesn't matter. Like, unless there's something you were just dying to see in Hall H, don't worry about it. There's so much other cool stuff. that you're fine. So there's Hall H and there's also Ballroom 20. So anytime you see one of those, you are going to have to be so prepared for a line and like when you're going to have to line up. Pretty universally, what they do is they don't clear rooms between panels. So, granted, like this will backfire as soon as I say it, but basically like you got to aim for the panel before the panel you want to see. In one of those places, at least. Hall H is like sometimes you got to aim for the whole day because that's just how it works. But because I think when we talked to Michaela, the Alien panel was like at 3:00 in the afternoon, and she went. I think that's what it was, or I can't remember if it was very first thing she saw, or if it was late in the day. But then she just figured like, well, I'm here. I'll watch Marvel. I'll watch Doctor Who. I'll watch all these other huge panels. So I don't think Marvel is at the show this year.
Yeah,
and HBO's not at the show.
That makes sense, though. I mean, Marvel's they can't really say much about anything until Infinity War 2 comes out. What about other events? Because like there's the main convention center, but almost kind of like South by Southwest. It's not just that; it's the whole downtown area. Where could you find other panels, other events officially? Like is there such a thing as like off Broadway? In terms of SDCC.
Great question. So there are. In the official schedule, there's 3 hotels, 2 on one side of the convention center and 1 on the other. So like the Hilton, the Hyatt, and the Marriott or something. So there will be panels and other events and a lot of like gaming in those hotels in different ballrooms. That's all connected to the convention center. Like all that stuff will be programmed you'll see it in the app or in the program guide they give you. You will find those locations. They've been doing official events at the library, which is this like gorgeous, ridiculous new library that they've got downtown. And in some years, I don't know that they've always been attached to Comic-Con, but at Petco Stadium, like the Padres Stadium, there have been events in there. Like one big deal for several years was The Walking Dead. Like you paid money to get chased by zombies through this maze in the stadium. People could pay money to watch you get chased. That was my favorite part. You couldn't even go watch them get chased for free.
Dang.
But actually so there's one point there, which is there's tons of stuff to do in downtown San Diego that you don't need a badge for. Like there's a big, a lot of this you got to register for in advance, but there's like a big, The Good Place, I think, has a big interactive experience this year outside.
Castle Rock does. They built a whole town across the convention center.
So those things are generally like, they're open to you if you don't have a badge. They're not always free, but they're open.
But to your point, there are going to be lines there too. So don't pretend as though just because they're not part of the official badge slate that there's not going to be maybe even bigger lines for these things.
Yeah. I would also say the other thing is that there's so much like that area of San Diego. Now, I don't know if this encompasses all of that downtown area, but like 4th and 5th Street, right around there is known as the Gaslamp Quarter. And there is so much cool stuff in Gaslamp, and the streets, at least I think 5th is generally blocked off for the couple of blocks right before the convention center. So there's just so much like pedestrian traffic, and every restaurant, the servers are in costume or they have special cocktails named after, superheroes or sci-fi stuff. There's galleries down there. I think there's like a Chuck Close gallery that's always does like a, San Diego like Comic-Con sort of takeover where there's comic book art on the walls. And so there's just tons of stuff to do to give yourself a break from the convention center, just kind of get out of that. You'll still be in a crowd. But at least you can there's more stuff to do. Like it's it's simultaneously like that feeling of like FOMO of I'm missing out on something cool happening here. I guess that's what it is if you go in only to see Game of Thrones, like there's no way you can't experience that missing out regret, because something else cool is going to happen across the convention center that you're going to miss. Rose Leslie's going to show up and sell a pop figurine to somebody or something. Adam Savage is walking around in a costume and you're trying to identify him, or you're not the one that sees him or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you just kind of open it up to like the experience, there is so much to do downtown and all over that it's just fun to do. There's a big park behind the convention center that I don't think you need a badge for that. And they've done they've done a bunch more like interactive things back there. I think it was last year they did the maybe it's 2 years ago they did like a mutant sort of uh, they had these like tubes set up that would like sort of just spray gas down on you, so it looked like you were in a tube getting like iced or something, or
Okay.
it had something to do with Legion or whatever, I don't know. And and they've had like the zip line across Gotham, and one year they had every Batmobile from every movie out there.
Damn.
And so it's like you can always just take a break and experience something else and see something else. Don't feel that you have to stick to this rigid schedule. I remember the name of the person I saw was John Holmstrom,
there you go,
illustrator from Punk Magazine. And I think I said it on our podcast last year of like, I went in Thursday, like I only want to meet John Hodgman, and I ended up meeting him and then getting an autograph from Holmstrom and then something else like before lunch. And we went to lunch and I was like, yeah, I can go. I'm good. Like it's all
my day's done
gravy at this point, at that it was so much easier than to just kind of roll around and be like, hey, it's a free day, like I kind of checked off the 2 items on my list and everything else was bonus.
That's rad. I wonder, by the way, as you were talking about lines and just sort of the other events, I wonder if anybody's employed the strategy of, if you want to disrupt a line or create some chaos so that you can slip into something, just point at whatever random guy you see that's dressed up with the mask on and say, it's Chris Hemsworth, everybody. There he is. That's Hemsworth. I know it. And try to make everybody believe that the next tall guy with a mask on is Chris Hemsworth. Disrupt that line and then just like sneak in. I would love to see somebody try that and try it successfully. And bonus points if that actually ends up being Chris Hemsworth and you out him. That seems like a game that everybody should probably be playing at all times.
Oh boy. I remember when the Suicide Squad cast came across the floor. I think I also told this story a couple of years ago where I was like in this mad dash to get to the end of this one aisle where this author was doing a signing. I was like, she's leaving at 3:00. And I'm like running. And right then they have all these security guards escorting every member of the Suicide Squad cast across the middle of the floor. Ugh. So they've literally done this like, Moses parting the river kind of thing. The security has blocked all traffic running, north to south across the.
It's like a presidential motorcade. It's like stop all traffic. Here it comes.
Yeah. So it's on one hand, I don't know that anyone would fall for it because they've sort of been trained to expect like Hemsworth isn't just walking around without a guard. Like
but there's usually those
guards. But
there have been bigger stars known to just throw on a mask and just wander around as other normies, and it's like I wonder. And I wonder if you couldn't throw that out there. Let me ask you this though: during all this, obviously, there's lines and everything. And you're talking about coffee, but where should one eat? Lunchtime.
Yeah.
If you got friends with you, is there a better place to eat with a group than as an individual? Is it all sort of like food truck food or cafeteria food? Do you even try to get into a restaurant at this juncture? What's your recommendation?
Yeah, awesome question, because I think I can lean more into I don't have specific recommendations just because I'm not in that area of town that often. I don't remember the names of these except every year when I go back down there. Like I said, every restaurant's going to have some Comic-Con flair that week, so they're also going to be pretty focused on getting people in and out. Like, so it's not necessarily like, don't think that it's faster for you to eat in and around the convention center than to go across to the Gaslamp District. Because a lot of the like restaurant proper kind of places are trying to move people through there so quickly. Mm-hmm. So, they're definitely like staffed up and moving you, but it's also, if you're an older gentleman like myself, it's great to like move away. I'm telling you, my convention experience went day and night for the better a couple years ago when all of my friends agreed, let's eat good food and let's not take the trolley. Those two things made such a huge difference. Because even if you go a few blocks extra, you can get food and kind of sit down for a minute and just feel that like, I walked a few more blocks to get here, but I got seated faster and I could take my time to eat. That said, there's tons of stuff right there that's actually pretty decent that I don't think you uh, so I don't think you need to worry about basically don't eat the microwave pizza in the convention center is what I'm saying. Like,
Okay.
unless you're like, I don't know, 21 and under or something, there's no reason to just go up to the thing that's like in the center where they're just like giving you the reheated cheese.
What about
break out
costs
slightly.
though? Like how much? Like I mean, if you get anywhere within the convention center radius, are you paying exorbitant
Yeah.
prices? Is it ridiculous? Is it
I
reasonable?
don't know that it's ridiculous. It's probably marked up a little bit. Outside so in that there's that big open yard right between the Hilton Bayside and the Hall H. There's also like set up right there is always like a hot dog and hamburger stand that I haven't actually eaten at, but it smells delicious. And and the reason I haven't eaten there is because the line is huge. So, and I always think of it as like, I'll just grab a hot dog, but no. It's like, you got to stand in line for a hot dog. But that's reasonably quick, because you're not getting seated and all that kind of stuff. You just have to stand in line to get lunch. But that's pretty good food. There's a sports bar right there that my friends and I inevitably eat at every year. And then someone's like, I'm kind of tired of this place. But
What about?
it's like a TGI Fridays kind of thing.
What about? And this just crossed my mind. What about bringing your own snacks and stuff? Is that do they?
I'll definitely do that.
They don't forbid your own.
No,
food?
no. You can bring water and food in for sure. I think on the prohibited items are more about like weapons.
Got it. Okay.
I'm looking at it now
as a weapon. I mean, I would imagine like Jason Bourne could take a bag of pretzels and you take down a
frowned upon. There's also like, there are coffee stops in the convention center. There's at least 2 Starbucks, like maybe 2 Starbucks stands, and then one sort of Starbucks that actually has a few seats in, but you're going to have to wait forever in a line to get that stuff. So on my coffee tip, it would be, if you're like me and you require it to function, get it before you even go into the center. Like get it downtown or it's somewhere else, like the coffee shop in Hilton. So even if you're staying in the Hilton and you have to go downstairs to get Starbucks, huge line, it's insane.
Can you imagine, by the way, if you were just some normal dude or lady in San Diego on regular business that weekend and you had unbeknownst to you booked a room at the Hilton, and it's just like a year or two.
I actually believe that's impossible.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I do know that I've gone to certain panels there that they line you up outside and you're sort of like below the pool deck. And you're looking up at these people at the pool and you're like, what the hell are you doing at a pool in the middle of Comic-Con? Like, put your costume on and get down here. Come on.
Yeah.
I do think granted, there's cosplayers that stay all over, but God, the ones that get a hotel room right there are the most fortunate because they're the ones that can like do the costume for an hour and then go back and change into street clothes and have a convention experience. So the trolleys to get downtown are just jam packed. Like, it is insane how many people come from North County as far as up as the trolley runs. Those people are coming in, and the same with the train. And as I don't know if we did a show in 2015 on this, but in 2015, I think was the year I had this terrible train experience.
Oh no, we talked about it because that's where you saw your Wicked and Divine.
That's where I saw the Wicked and Divine cosplayer, where I literally I left the convention and told my friends like, I gotta make this train. And then I stand in line outside waiting for the train for 2 hours.
Jesus.
Like an Amtrak scheduled train. And and then stood for the entire 2-hour ride home.
Having just done trains in Italy where waiting 20 minutes was a little offensive, I can't imagine 2 hours and then another. Oh God. So you had mentioned in your notes also pedicabs, which I always have to remind myself pedicabs are the same thing as rickshaws. I was always like pedicab.
Human-powered rickshaws. So it used to be a big thing in the days before Uber and Lyft. Uber and Lyft, I think, have changed that. And I do think the influence of Uber and Lyft has caused there is some big closure downtown this year. And I think that's because they're tired of getting the Uber and Lyft people on this one street right in front of the convention center, pausing all the time to let people on and off.
Yeah.
So I think if you're Ubering and Lyfting, you're now going to have to walk into the Gaslamp district and find a street that's got, ingress and egress in order to catch your Uber. Also, just a side note, don't take Uber, take Lyft. Uber seems to have some like shitty corporate policies. But pedicabs are always right there. Bear in mind that is a rickshaw, like where a human being is in the sun, like getting you someplace. So you want to have cash to take them, and you want to tip heavily, I would say,
and just be overall nice to them.
Yeah. I be aware there a lot of them are trying to scam each other or scam you on like getting the most rides per day. So it's a little competitive down there. But yeah, treat them like human beings and tip them appropriately.
Well, to wrap this up, the one thing we haven't talked about is the things you want to see this year. So if you're going to SDCC, where can we find Todd, whether it be at panels or authors or just personalities you want to see? Where could we find you? What are your big ticket items this year?
Thank you for guiding this and bringing it home before I just rambled about food forever. Although you do want to try that one's giant dog that my friend Chris had a couple years ago. It was a hot dog that was like 2 feet long.
Dang, good tip.
Anyway, I can't remember the restaurant that was at. It was at some Mexican restaurant. Like I said, I only saw the schedule for the first time this morning. So all the panels that I'd heard about are just sort of people tweeting about what they're doing. So instead, I had made this short list of like podcasters and writers and authors that I just want to sort of check in with. Like, it would be great to see them. One is Katrina Dennis. She does or it's probably Denise, I'm not sure. She does a podcast.
How do you pronounce your name?
I'll tweet at her today and then get like a great response. She does a podcast called Y Tu Banta Tambien, which is about the Latinx representation in Star Wars. So I'm sure she's hosting a panel or something. I just hope to run into her and see that. Sam Maggs is an author. She's actually the one I was racing to and got hijacked by Suicide Squad. And she should be down there. And then there's another podcaster named Preeti Cheaper, who does Strong Female Characters podcast for the Sci-Fi Network. And she's hosting at least one panel. I think it's on Saturday, and I think it's called the Fake Geek Girl Fallacy. And I don't know if she is the host. She is a panelist. And then there's an author named Victoria or V.E. Schwab that I like. I've only read one of her books right now, but I own a couple. And she's actually has written these Shades of Magic series that I pitched to you about the 3 different like magic Londons that these people travel back and forth to. And so she's going to be there. And oddly enough, of course, I don't discover this author until I move out of the city, but she's based in Nashville and Edinburgh.
Wow.
Which is like, okay, that's cool. But she's had like a super successful year, and she's just like a great personality and great author. And so another person I want to run into. Other than that, like I've gone through the app and starred a few things that I'm interested in, but I haven't yet seen something jump out where I'm like, I've got to be in that one. Like, that's the one I'm going to wait for, Mm-hmm. So, I think every year for the past 3 years, I've gone in with a more open mind and relaxed attitude towards what I'm going to get to see. So
is that just because you have gone so many years that you feel like you've seen, you can be more comfortable because you've kind of seen all the stuff at
probably, I hate to say that because I feel like acknowledging that, although it is probably true.
But that's not a bad thing, right? Like, I mean,
it may just signify like, hey, old man, stop buying tickets and let some young person who's never been go.
Well,
but I also think the other side of it is that I'm older, and I feel like, I did all those things like where I waited in a ballroom 20 line outside for 2 hours to see Mythbusters or something and didn't get in. And it's sort of like, I've learned my lesson, I guess, from a bit of those things. And also another factor is that as big a fan as I am of like the whole culture and stuff, there just aren't big, huge properties that I'm like such an uber fan of that I can't miss something, like I would think it would be really cool to see a Game of Thrones panel sometime. I've never seen that. But also next year it's going to be their last one. if they even do it, or if the show comes out before that. We don't even know, do we?
No, not
the
yet.
show going to come out after Comic-Con next year. That will be the worst.
Probably. I mean, they might do like a love letter panel. You never know.
Yeah,
they can get everybody back together. The problem is like now that they've wrapped most of the shooting, everybody's going to be off on other gigs and things. So hard to say. I think Doctor Who's going to be there this year with the whole new. I mean, everything is new.
Yeah, I think the Doctor Who is a big, huge panel, and that's the one that, if I'm not mistaken, I think Hardwick got booted from. And
oh man, there's real quick. Let's touch on that because you and I have never talked. We haven't talked really about this at length, especially on the show. Are you? Do you think? And you don't even have to get into the details, but do you think Hardwick being suspended, quote unquote, for the time being from all these panels is a good thing?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I was just curious. Like, I don't know if that felt disruptive or if it felt like, and I don't know who's filling in for him at the panels. So. I know
even if this, I believe Chloe Dykstra's story, and I do not think that Chris was denied due process or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But even if I didn't know this, and you said, "Hey, what if we just take him off of every panel this year?" I would have been like, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm sick of him.
Well, that's kind of more what I was getting at. Cause it's like, it seems like he's sort of always been that guy. He's almost kind of like the Ryan Seacrest of all these panels. And it's like, wait, who did we ever ask for that? Like, why is that? Like, why is that always the case?
Honestly, the parts of that story that of the awful allegations against him that ring the most true are that we all witnessed this, like, hunger for fame that he had, this sort of like desperate plea for for being like the geek guy host of everything. I mean, I just I was entertained by him a few times, but he was never really my cup of tea, and I fine with him not being there.
It'll be good to get some new blood in there. That's actually the one thing I'm looking forward to, just from being a watcher from afar. I try to consume whatever panels and just sort of podcasts I can during the week, but it'll be nice to finally like hear a panel that's not moderated by him. Who knows we'll get in there.
Exactly. Like that is such, exactly. Like even if it weren't him, even if this weren't because of those allegations, like just breaking it up a little bit is absolutely the thing to do. And especially because I think they've replaced him with a woman of color. So I think it's like, hey, good on you. Like you actually diversified it and didn't just, flip one white guy for another white guy. So.
Yeah. The actress from Community, I forget her name. And she's I think she's actually friends with Hardwick too. She's filling in on and I want to stress filling in because it's still, AMC is still not quite sure what they're going to do yet, but she's taking over. She's filling in on Talking Dead, which how that's even still a thing, I don't even know. But like, and I think she's doing one of his panels at SDCC, and I forget. I think Mark Bernardin might be taking on another one.
I know that would make sense, and he's also got. I did notice, like in the schedule, there's like a big focus on Mark Bernardin. So like a panel dedicated to him. I don't know if that's the first time he's gotten one of those.
He's done some smaller ones. I don't think he's ever gotten a big one before though, which makes me so happy because he's the co-host of Fat Man on Batman, but he is like, if you've ever heard him, he's so smart. Like he's got such a smart way of looking at like fictional properties and the mechanics, and then just understanding all that goes. Like if there's anybody I'd want to see moderate every panel, it'd probably be that guy, because like you're going to get some really good insight. He's also one of the writers on Castle Rock, and that hasn't come out yet, so we don't know how big or how good that's going to be. But it's cool to see him finally. He's been banging around Hollywood for a long time as a journalist and now as a writer. It's finally cool to see him getting some of these high marks and higher rated slots, if you will. So that'll be cool.
And I saw him on that panel last year, the Image panel that was like the storytelling through art. He was at that one, and that was just so cool to watch him in that element with other artists. Talking about a work. I guess he had written it, but he was talking about expressly like how they, told that story through the art.
Well, let me ask you one final question, and then we'll wrap up. Do you feel, and I don't think we've ever touched on this real, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever touched on this in a past episode. As somebody who has gone for now, this will be your 11th year, as we mentioned. How do you feel about the con simulcasting a lot of the panels or a lot of the stuff to those of us who haven't bought a badge or haven't, and even like right now, there doesn't seem to be a mechanism to, I can't sit at home and do like the day pass and just watch all the stuff for like a fee even. So I kind of have to like scrounge it where I can. Do you feel like as a goer that's, you're like, well, no, you didn't buy a pass. You shouldn't get to see that stuff. Or do you feel like there's so much there already that it's like, well, why not? Like, why not share that the same day?
I'm more in the latter camp of like, especially if it's buy a day pass and watch all the panels you want. I don't, if they're making money out of that, by all means do it. I don't, it's a tricky economic issue, but I feel a bit like when I watch a live music video on YouTube, like I know that experience would be better in person. I wish I could be there seeing this artist play the show, but I'm not. So it's already like, I'm already cognizant that I'm not getting the full experience. I don't necessarily need Comic-Con or, the venue or whatever to like pull that off of YouTube and like further, alienate me and let me know like, no, you didn't pay, you don't get the experience. So
well, that's the weird thing. Like you think, it's 2018, you think they would have figured this out by now. And like with the limit of tickets and the limit of badges that are available, as you've pointed out a few times, that, and for those of us who just logistically can't make it, but are interested or want to be engaged, you'd think there'd be an easy way through the app or through some other, even like an add-on channel on Amazon or Hulu where it's like, hey, buy the Comic-Con channel and you'll get access to everything or whatever that looks like. It's weird that they still haven't sorted that out yet. Cause it could easily be a big chunk of revenue on top of what they're already making.
Yeah. Why is it not a Hulu channel?
When it wouldn't cost them anything. Like it doesn't cost them another guy to clean the bathroom because I'm not there. It's like the overhead is hardly anything.
They're already filming it.
Yeah, so it's just so weird. It bothers me. I think the studios finally learned their lesson. What was it 2 years ago where I think everything DC tried to keep Hall H secret was immediately leaked. So they're like, fine, well, we're just gonna put all the trailers out the same day. Here you go.
Well, I also the stuff that those big studios try to keep secret is like that's just such a dumb reason to come to con. Come in for sure, bring a special experience for the people in the room, but often when they do that and it's just a teaser or a sneak preview or something, it's like, that's only going to be cool for like 2 months.
Yeah.
And not even that. It's like,
and somebody's always going to leak it. Somebody will always leak it. And so it's either somebody's shitty version on YouTube that, is racking up millions of views, or you release it yourself properly. Like, maybe it's something where it's like, okay, the people in the room get to see it first. Fine. And then 2 minutes later, it's released to the world. So it's like, you still get to have, that experience of we saw it before, the rest of the world here with the people who made it. I like your point. It's like, that's not the reason people go to the con. Like there's all these other things.
And like that to me is if you're the first timer, like for any convention, like it works both ways. Like yes, there's such cool stuff that you can see, but also don't feel like you're missing out if you don't get into that exclusive panel, because you're right. You might not have that really crazy in-person experience with the cast of Game of Thrones, but you can have a really crazy in-person experience with, a cosplayer or an artist or something in the exhibit hall. It's just, it's all out there. It's not, I almost think that like when those big studios are disappointed, that stuff is quote leaked. It's like, they're the ones who were, like approaching it wrong. Like they were trying to approach it like, no, we were trying to make this, and whatever it's called, that like limited economy, of only 3,000 people get to have this product.
Yeah.
No, it's like media. We're all going to have it.
Well, that said, this podcast is available for everybody. So we're glad you're listening. And thank you, Todd, for what a wonderful, we'll just call this the SDCC Survival Guide 2018 edition.
I'm just telling you, sanitary wipes of all sizes and flavors. That's
sanitary wipes and just be used to lines. I mean, just be lines.
I'll leave you with this one more tip. Bring a bottle of water at least to start the day. You're gonna have to refill for sure, but don't don't like plan to get there and then buy a bottle of water, because you'll go dehydrated, because you won't want to get in the line. You won't want to miss getting into the exhibit hall. Bring that bottle of water, people, because
it's not like the TSA. You don't have to throw it out before you get into the building. You just take it in.
If you're hydrated and you're sanitized, I don't have to worry so much about swine flu.
There you go. You should know, and you should know. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are downloaded. Apple Podcasts, I was gonna say iTunes, the same thing. Stitcher, Google Play, and anywhere else. You can find us online. The main website for our network of shows is findusthere.org. We will have, I think, some new Coffee and Comics related stuff. I think we're working on an Instagram account or trying to beef that up. Hopefully this week we'll have more about that. I would love to, Todd, see some photos from the con from you this week as well. Maybe we can talk about that offline.
You will be able to find those at Hey Todd A on Instagram as well.
Wonderful. And I am by Taylor Trask on Instagram. Still on Twitter too, but I'm not as I have pulled back off of Facebook a lot, and Twitter I'm still on, but it's just, I think Instagram is for me where it's at these days. So that's kind of my
check out Taylor's photos from Italy. They're incredible. Yeah.
And there's plenty more to come. I want to be more engaged on Instagram as time goes on. Always a pleasure, sir. And thank you. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with more Coffee and Comics.